Are you curious about the secrets to navigating the criminal justice system with confidence? In this video, we take a deep dive into my book, How to Avoid Arrest. My name is Joey Sapp. Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We like to dive into some interesting sources, and,
Yeah.
and today is no different.
No, it's not.
Today we're looking at a book called How to Avoid Arrest and Trial and How to Win a Criminal Jury Trial
That's right.
by Joseph Sapp.
Joseph Sapp, former criminal trial attorney
Yep.
with decades of experience.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting book, and I think it's a book that can help people
Absolutely.
in a lot of different situations,
Yeah.
whether or not they're actually facing a legal situation
Right.
or just curious about the system
I think we all want to be prepared.
or prepping for a hypothetical what if.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that really caught my eye, you know how people always say innocent until proven guilty?
Yeah.
He has this concept of being innocent until stupid.
That's right. That's one of his big chapters.
And I thought that was such a powerful way to think about it.
It really is.
So tell me a little bit about that concept.
Well, his point is that by drawing unnecessary attention to yourself,
Yeah.
especially when you're engaging in activities that might be considered illegal,
Yeah.
you significantly increase your chances of having a negative encounter.
So it's not just about what you're doing. It's about how you're doing it.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
It's about not being the low-hanging fruit. If
Well-
you're driving down the highway, who gets pulled over more often?
Right.
The car weaving in and out of traffic?
Or the one going the speed limit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about blending in, not being flashy or erratic.
He uses this great analogy of a gray 1992 Ford Taurus.
The gray man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just blend right in.
Blend in.
So, even if you're not doing anything wrong,
Right.
just being in the wrong place at the wrong time,
Yeah.
maybe with the wrong people could increase your risk.
For sure. And that ties into his discussion of random events.
Okay.
Because random events...
Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, he gives this example of a census worker. And, they go door to door.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that they show up unexpectedly and somebody's in possession of something they shouldn't be.
Okay.
What starts as a routine check-in suddenly becomes a potential legal issue.
Wow.
So it's about recognizing that these unforeseen circumstances can
Yeah.
dramatically escalate a situation.
So these random events could be anything. It could be anything.
It could be anything.
Yeah, it really could.
So how do we avoid these situations or at least, minimize the risk?
Well, one of the things that he talks about is taking control of what you can control.
Okay.
Keep your car in good condition so you don't get pulled over for a broken taillight.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who are, responsible and level-headed.
Right.
Because, as we discussed, their actions can reflect on you.
Yeah.
It's about minimizing vulnerabilities that could attract unwanted attention.
So being prepared and aware
Right.
could help you stay calm and collected if something unexpected does happen.
What happens if, despite your best efforts, you do end up in a situation with law enforcement? I know he has some thoughts on that.
He does. He has some pretty strong opinions about how to handle those encounters.
Okay.
Which brings us to his rather colorful analogy about wiener size.
Okay, we've got to unpack that.
We do.
This wiener size concept. Now, I know it's not literal, but tell me about that.
So his point is a police officer in uniform will always have the bigger wiener.
Okay.
It's about understanding the power dynamics when you're dealing with law enforcement, especially in public.
Right.
His point is engaging in an ego battle or trying to win a confrontation on the street is almost always going to backfire.
So it's about picking your battles.
It really is.
Knowing when to stand your ground and when to maybe not.
Exactly. He's not saying to roll over and give up your rights.
Right.
In fact, he strongly emphasizes knowing your rights and staying calm but assertive.
Right.
However, there's a difference between calmly stating your position and getting into a shouting match with an officer who has the power to escalate the situation.
And he also recommends recording encounters
Yes, he does.
with law enforcement.
He does.
Why is that?
He believes that having your own record of what happened can be invaluable.
Okay.
He also goes on to say that you should decline field sobriety tests while expressing your willingness to cooperate with tests at the station.
Why the distinction?
Well, field sobriety tests, according to Sapp, can be quite subjective. Nerves, the officer's own perceptions, even the environment can influence the results.
Right.
Tests done at the station tend to be more controlled, and plus you might have your own recording from earlier as well.
So it's like a safety net. A way to double-check the narrative.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of interesting concepts here, and you mentioned that he has a surprisingly simple but effective strategy for winning a criminal trial.
He does.
And I think this is something we should dive into in part 2.
Let's do it.
As our deep dive.
Sounds good.
So this winning a criminal trial strategy, it's surprisingly simple but effective.
Yeah, and he gives credit to this older, very seasoned African-American judge in Northeast Georgia for teaching him this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's been doing this for a while.
All right, so what's the secret?
Well, it's not so much a secret as it is just an understanding of human nature.
Okay.
It's the inherent inconsistency of human memory.
So you're saying our memories aren't as reliable
They're not.
as we think they
Yeah.
are?
And he used to always tell a story that every time a witness tells their story, they're going to say something slightly different.
Oh, interesting.
And it's not necessarily intentional lying, although that can happen too.
Yeah.
But it's just that details get fuzzy over time.
Right. Emphasis shifts, small details change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And over multiple retellings, those seemingly minor variations can snowball into significant discrepancies.
Okay, so how does this tie into his strategy?
So his strategy is to force the prosecution's key witnesses, which is often police officers, to make multiple statements under oath before the trial even begins.
Oh, so he's getting them on the record.
Exactly.
Multiple times. Multiple times under oath.
How does he manage to do that?
Bond hearings.
Okay.
Arraignments, motions hearings.
Oh, so he's using all the pre-trial.
Every opportunity he gets.
Hearings to get them on the record.
That's right.
Okay.
And each time he's asking similar questions but phrases them slightly differently.
So he's creating this paper trail of their statements, knowing that the more they talk, the more likely they are to contradict themselves.
That's exactly it.
He's not looking for the big lie.
No.
He's looking for the subtle shift.
The nuance.
The nuance, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how does he use that at trial?
So that when the trial rolls around and the witness inevitably tells their story slightly differently again, he confronts them with those previous statements.
Wow, that is a very clever strategy.
Yeah, it shifts the focus from the defendant's guilt or innocence to the reliability of the evidence itself. Right, it introduces that reasonable doubt.
Exactly.
Which is so important.
And remember, in a criminal trial, the burden of proof is on the prosecution.
Right.
They have to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
And if their own witnesses can't keep their stories straight...
It throws the whole case into question.
Exactly.
Did you have success with this?
He claims to be undefeated in jury trials.
Oh.
As a solo practitioner.
Really?
And attributes much of that success to this very tactic.
That's amazing.
Oh,
This is fascinating stuff.
It is.
But it seems like just a legal maneuver.
Right.
So how can our listeners use this in their everyday lives?
Well, this principle of understanding memory's fallibility goes way beyond the courtroom.
Okay.
Think about contract disputes, workplace investigations, heck, even personal relationships.
Yeah.
Any situation where accuracy and consistency matter.
Right.
The more we understand how our memories can be influenced, the better equipped we are to navigate those situations.
So it's really about understanding the limitations of memory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And documenting things.
That.
Because that documentation can become more valuable than you think.
Right. So we can use this in our everyday lives, even if we're not in a courtroom.
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned that he also encourages readers to file complaints.
He does.
Against law enforcement officials who may have given inconsistent...
Or even false
testimony.
Under oath.
Under oath.
Yes.
He's really advocating for holding people in positions of authority accountable.
Absolutely.
But wouldn't filing a complaint be a form of revenge?
Well,
I mean, is that ethical?
That's a great question, and that leads us perfectly into the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore his thoughts on the distinction between justice and revenge.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back talking about this book by Joseph Sapp on how to avoid arrest and trial and how to win a criminal jury trial. And we're getting into some pretty deep stuff here.
Yeah, we are.
This distinction between justice and revenge.
Right. It's an important one.
Yeah.
And, it all starts with asking ourselves, what is justice?
Right. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's a question.
It's one of those things we think we know until we have to define it.
Exact.
And then we're like,
You start to really think about it, and it's like, well,
yeah.
What does that actually look like?
So how does Sapp define justice?
Well, he distinguishes justice from revenge.
Okay.
He says revenge is driven by personal anger, a desire to inflict harm on someone because of a perceived wrong.
Right, like you're just trying to get back at them.
Right.
Yeah.
Justice, on the other hand, he says, is about fairness.
Okay.
Upholding the law ensuring that the scales are balanced.
So it's about a resolution that benefits everyone.
Right.
Or
Right,
at least, a sense of right and wrong.
Right and wrong, not just about punishing someone because you're angry at them.
Right, and this is where he brings it back to the danger of what he calls stupid people.
Right, and he defines stupid in a very specific way. He's not talking about just like intellectual ability.
Right.
He defines stupidity as actions that harm others without providing any benefit to oneself.
Okay.
He says stupid people are often driven by a need for revenge.
Okay.
They lash out without thinking about the consequences, and it often backfires on them.
So they're not thinking strategically.
No.
They're just reacting emotionally.
Exactly.
And I can see how that could lead to more problems.
Right. And that's where that line between justice and revenge can get blurred.
Yeah.
Someone might be so focused on getting back at another person that they end up doing something that actually obstructs justice.
Right.
Like making false accusations or even tampering with evidence.
So even if you feel like you've been wronged,
Yeah.
acting impulsively or letting anger guide your actions can just make a bad situation worse.
Right. He really stresses thinking clearly.
Right.
And focusing on what true justice would look like.
So it sounds like he's advocating for, thinking clearly and focusing on what true justice would look like.
Yes.
And not just getting caught up in those feelings of revenge.
Right. He really stresses the importance of seeking justice through legal channels rather than taking the law into your own hands.
Right.
He acknowledges that the legal system isn't perfect.
Yeah.
But it is a framework for resolving disputes fairly and impartially.
So even if you disagree with the outcome,
right,
trusting the process is better than letting those feelings get in the way.
That's right.
Okay.
It all comes back to that idea of knowledge is power.
Right.
By understanding your rights.
Yeah.
Knowing how the system works, preparing yourself for these potential legal situations, you're empowering yourself to seek justice in a meaningful and effective way.
Wow. This has been such an interesting conversation.
It has.
I feel like I've learned a lot, not just about the law, but about human behavior and how to approach challenging situations with a clear head.
That's what we like to do.
Yeah, so what's the key takeaway?
The key takeaway, I would say, is understand the difference between justice and revenge. If you find yourself facing a legal situation, remember Sapp's advice. Seek resolution through the proper channels.
Okay.
Be prepared to stand up for yourself.
Right.
And your rights.
And knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
This has been another fantastic deep dive.
Yeah, it has been.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and share this video podcast. Also, go on over to Amazon and get a copy of my book. The link is in the description. Also, legalwritingusa.com.